News of the Blade Runner's early release sharply divides opinion. South Sudan's latest talks begin in Ethiopia as a humanitarian crisis worsens at home. And a new app allows you to get in touch with your ego. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. First tonight, in a shocking twist, the Blade Runner returns. South African athlete Oscar Pistorius will be released on parole on August the 21st after serving 10 months of a 5-year sentence for culpable homicide of his girlfriend, River Steenkamp. And now the Olympic and Paralympic track star is in prison in the capital, Pretoria, after being convicted in October following a 7-month trial. Pistorius qualifies for parole under South African sentencing guidelines that say non-dangerous prisoners should spend only 1/6 of their sentence behind bars. News of his pending early release drew mixed reactions in South Africa.
In my view, he never served a proper sentence for what he did. And I'm really against that he have to be released at this stage. I think his matter must be reviewed and he must still go back to court.
How do I feel about Oscar getting out? I think it's okay. I think it was a terrible mistake, and I think personally he must be paying a very heavy price for it.
I don't know. Let's see how it goes, but maybe justice will serve its course. But once again, money talks.
Well, Pistorius' pending release does not end his legal battles. Prosecutors now want Pistorius tried for murder. If convicted, he will be returned to jail where he could remain for another 15 years. Now, for more on the Oscar Pistorius pending release, Tlantla Sehume of Kaya FM joins us live by phone from Johannesburg. And Tlantla, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Now, give us a bigger picture in terms of reaction across South Africa, but first begin with the family of River Steenkamp.
Well, River Steenkamp's parents spoke through their lawyer, Tanya Kuhn, where they expressed their complete shock at the Correctional Service Department's recommendation to put Oscar Pistorius under house arrest. Now, the elderly couple, who are both retired and were dependent on their slain daughter financially before her tragic death, said while they had forgiven the daughter's killers, the 10 months that he had spent in prison is not enough. They say that this also doesn't send out the proper message to the public and does not serve as a proper deterrent to commit a crime as the way it should. The couple attended the last leg of the marathon murder trial, and I could see the strain it was putting on them as they looked quite exhausted by the events in court. They had said at the end of the trial that they were looking to find closure, but they recently said they are still dealing with the loss of their precious daughter every day, a clear testament that it's still proving quite difficult for them to deal with their loss. Now, a reaction from the public, as you have found, there's been a mixed reaction here in South Africa, certainly from members of the public. Some people are saying that the ruling is an injustice, considering the seriousness of the crime committed by Oscar Pistorius. However, for others who have been following the trial, especially in the media, in this highly publicized case, this came as no surprise, as it had been widely reported that Oscar Pistorius would be released after serving about 10 months in prison. Now, the decision has reignited a national debate in South Africa about the rule of law, with some people saying it favors the rich and famous or those who are politically connected. However, legal experts and some of the lawyers that I spoke to are adamant that there is nothing unique or unusual about Pistorius being placed on house arrest, as he has already served a 1/6 of his sentence.
Now, Tlantla, there is also the matter of him possibly being retried in the United States. That is called double jeopardy. Can you explain to us the possibility of him actually going back to courts and possibly being convicted?
Yes, state prosecutors are saying that Oscar Pistorius should have been found guilty of murder, and now they're taking their case to the Supreme Court of Appeal. Now, if the Supreme Court of Appeal comes to a finding that he is guilty of murder, he could face a much more lengthier jail term than just 5 years for manslaughter, with the prescribed minimum sentence for murder now being 15 years in South African prisons. But the onus is on the prosecutors to prove Oscar Pistorius' intention to kill. Now, the double amputee testified in court that he shot and killed his girlfriend through a locked bathroom door at his Pretoria home, believing that she was an intruder. However, the prosecutors are going to launch a new challenge when the court sits for an appeal in November. Now, they will try and prove beyond reasonable doubt that Oscar Pistorius intentionally killed his girlfriend in the early hours of Valentine's Day in 2013 after they had allegedly had an argument, as state witnesses had previously testified. Now, you can remember that in March, a Johannesburg court blocked Oscar Pistorius' legal team's attempts to stop the prosecutor's appeal. But we are certainly going to have more coming out of this case in November when it sits for an appeal.
Well, definitely. We'll be waiting. But very quickly, do people feel that this was necessarily a matter of him having money and influence other than just justice? Quickly. Yes, a lot of public opinion is that he has been favored by the courts because of his wealth and because of his fame. But I think it's important to keep in mind that the law has been applied here, and hence legal experts will argue that there's nothing unique or unusual about this. Well, Tlantla, thank you very much. Tlantla Sehume is a reporter with Kaya FM in Johannesburg, South Africa. In East Africa, South Sudan's negotiators are meeting in Ethiopia to try to resolve the 18-month-old conflict dividing the world's youngest country. The warring factions have only 1 month left to form an internationally mandated power-sharing government. Meanwhile, fighting in and around South Sudan's Leer town has left citizens without food, water, and medical help. Video released by the International Red Cross on Tuesday shows worsening food crisis in one area of conflict-stricken South Sudan. Nearly 100,000 people fled the town and surrounding areas in Unity State about 2 weeks ago after hearing reports that warring forces were advancing on the area. The International Red Cross staff was also forced to flee, resulting in the suspension of food delivery to 120,000 people. Many residents hid in malaria-infested swamps several hours' walk from the town. Those who have now returned home told the International Red Cross they have little or no food and need health care.
They take all our car, they burn up all the food for the civilians, and they take all the lady, and they even kill all the young kids, like the girls.
Forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and rebels allied with former Vice President Riek Machar have been fighting for nearly 18 months in the world's newest state, which seceded from Sudan in 2011. Ceasefires have been agreed but broken. Hunger in Leer County, as in many of the worst affected areas of South Sudan, is already at crisis levels. Now the town's short planting season, which lasts just a few weeks, has been disrupted by the conflict.
Now we're going into rainy season, which also means that if they haven't had the chance to plant their seeds until now, they do not have any food stocks for the coming months. So we're going towards a very, very difficult period for the people here in South Sudan, coupled with an economic instability, which is certainly not going to help the country and the people.
Reports of continuing fighting mean that most of those who have returned are afraid to stay in town at night.
What I'm talking now is I'm talking through what I've seen. I have seen them with my own eye. Today, even you have around 3 to 4 people that were injured were brought from the village that I'm talking of. It's called Lual and Tai.
The Famine Early Warning Systems Network says without food aid, the area is likely to reach emergency levels one step from famine. Well, Nigeria's change in leadership could breathe new life into U.S. efforts to assist the country in fighting Boko Haram. Analysts say Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari's inauguration gives the two countries a chance to reset relations that became strained under former President Goodluck Jonathan. VOA State Department correspondent Pam Dawkins has the story.
An online video posted this week purportedly shows Boko Haram fighters using the logo Islamic State in West Africa. In the video, a militant accuses countries fighting Boko Haram of lying about the extent of their success in pushing back the group. The video comes just days after newly inaugurated President Muhammadu Buhari vowed to make fighting Boko Haram a top priority, an issue that he discussed with Secretary of State John Kerry, who attended the inauguration. Africa Center Director J. Peter Pham says it is important that the U.S. not allow tensions with the previous government to fester.
So I expect very quickly for the U.S. to move on some low-hanging fruit, sending of advisors to assist with intelligence and logistics, for example.
He says Nigeria is not a poor country in spite of its current economic problems.
It's not looking for a handout, but it's looking for the ability to purchase sufficient platforms and other equipment to deal with the challenges they face.
Africa analyst Mohammed Rahim, who spoke on VOA's Africa 54 program, says the U.S. and other world powers should also focus on helping communities directly impacted by Boko Haram kidnappings and attacks.
Technical assistance can really do a major it can assist tremendously for these communities.
In a briefing, a senior State Department official said the U.S. hopes to do more to help Nigeria fight Boko Haram, including training a battalion later this year. Pam Dawkins, VOA News, the State Department.
U.S. President Barack Obama and European leaders have agreed to toughen sanctions against Russia if it does not begin implementing the Minsk Accords and respecting Ukraine's sovereignty. The summit ended Monday after touching on a wide range of issues, including trade, climate change, and terrorism. VOA White House correspondent Luis Ramirez traveled with the president and has this report from the Schloss Elmau resort, the site of the summit in Germany.
Against a stunning backdrop of the German Alps, President Obama got what he wanted. European G7 leaders agreed to extend sanctions for as long as Russia fails to abide by the Minsk agreements.
Our European partners reaffirmed that they will maintain sanctions on Russia until the Minsk agreements are fully implemented, which means extending the EU's existing sectoral sanctions beyond July.
And a warning, the G7 is ready to impose additional significant sanctions if Russia does not start respecting Ukraine's sovereignty. On trade, President Obama highlighted his efforts to push through massive trade agreements with partners in both the Pacific and the Atlantic, and he called for Europe to help resolve the Greek debt crisis. Terrorism was a big topic. President Obama met with Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi to talk about the campaign against Islamic State militants following the fall of Ramadi. Help, Mr. Obama said, is coming.
The United States is going to continue to ramp up our training and assistance. We are going to continue to provide the supplies that are necessary for Iraqi forces to successfully mount offensive campaigns and not simply defensive campaigns.
Africa played a prominent role at the summit, with a number of leaders invited to discuss the fight against Boko Haram and look for ways to prevent future epidemics like Ebola. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, at the G7 summit in Schloss Elmau, Germany.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, now health segment results from phase 1 trials of an Ebola vaccine in Kenya. Stay with us.
This is Greenbeat.
The sun may have caused Icarus's wings to melt in Greek mythology, but today the sun is getting better press as the power behind a manned flight around the world.
Solar impulse is exactly what we need to prove that climate change has solutions and that we really can bring the new technologies to the market.
Bertrand Piccard and Andre Borschberg take turns piloting the single-seat aircraft that averages about 70 kilometers per hour. The trip was expected to take at least 5 months to complete, with stops in more than a dozen places. But bad weather has hampered the journey.
It was clear that the plane had to divert to Japan because the flight would have ended up in a disaster in the middle of the Pacific. And this, of course, is not a question for Solar Impulse.
Despite the setback, the Solar Impulse 2 has already accomplished what it set out to do, fly day and night with only the power of the sun. I'm VOA's Rebecca Ward for Green Beat.
Cameras, they're everywhere, capturing everything from graduations to crime on the street. They're part of our everyday lives, raising questions of privacy and ethics. Voice of America and the Newseum Institute present a live town hall discussion, In the Public Eye, Police, Cameras, and the Constitution. Experts will examine how we interpret what we see and discuss the legal and moral ramifications. Join the conversation now at hashtag In the Public Eye and join us live June 17th on VOA.
Well, Linomadu is off today. Joining us now is Esther Githo with our health report. What do you have for us, Esther?
We turn to Kenya, where initial results from phase 1 trials of an experimental Ebola vaccine known as RS-VSV-ZEBOV have shown that the vaccine is safe and generates an immune response against the deadly Ebola virus. Lenny Rubaga has more from the town of Kilifi.
30-year-old Munga Mwachiro goes about his daily duties in a matter-of-fact manner. He's an occupational health nurse and has been working at the Kemri Wellcome Trust research program in Kilifi for the last 2 years. His job includes safety preparedness and visiting patients in nearby villages. And he's one of 40 volunteers participating in the phase 1 Ebola vaccine trials. Today, Mwachiro is drawing up plans to visit the villages. 5 months ago, he was given the experimental Ebola vaccine as part of a process to prepare for its use in Kenya when necessary. He says he's participating in the trials to help humanity find a cure.
Due to the fear of Ebola and misconceptions about it, and I being a healthcare practitioner, I thought it was a great thing to assist in finding a solution to this epidemic.
Trials of RSV-ZEBOV began last December in Kilifi and 3 other sites in Switzerland, Germany, and Gabon. Scientists at the Canadian National Microbiology Laboratory developed the experimental Ebola vaccine, which was cleared for clinical trials last year by the World Health Organization. Dr. Patricia Njuguna, a clinical researcher and pediatrician, is the lead scientist tasked with developing the phase 1 trials in Kenya. For the last 8 years, she has been involved in various vaccine trials for other diseases, including malaria. The Ebola epidemic broke out in Guinea more than a year ago and spread to Liberia and Sierra Leone, killing more than 11,000 people. Dr. Njuguna says the positive results from the participants in Kenya could herald new insights into the search for a cure.
The participant is vaccinated and the immune system picks up the vaccine as a foreign component in the body. It breaks it down into little pieces and the immune system develops antibodies to the vaccine. And this is what we measure to see that you're responding to the vaccine.
Liberia was recently declared Ebola-free, but a rise in new cases in Guinea has led to fears that the virus could re-emerge. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Kilifi, Kenya.
And that's our health report for today.
Now, have you ever seen a coffin made to resemble an animal? How about a film projector or a Bible? An entrepreneur in Ghana is designing fantasy coffins uniquely created to capture the essence of the departed, whether a character trait, an occupation, or a symbol of one's standing in the community. VOA's Paul Ndiho recently visited Kane Kwei Carpentry Workshop in Teshie, Accra, and has our report.
Ghanaians are well known for their elaborate coffins, from stools to symbolize a chief to big pens for teachers, journalists and lawyers. This family enterprise has been passed on from generation to generation. A lot of people come here for customized coffins.
We have the film projector also for an old film producer or something. With crab, which is a totem of a particular clan. We have the lobster
which is also supposed to be for a chief fisherman. We have the van, the old trotro for a driver.
Like father, like son, Eric Ajeti Anang has been running this family business, which was started by his grandfather more than 50 years ago. The business has been passed down from generation to generation.
I'm the grandson of Kanekwe. Kanekwe happens to be the initiator of design coffins in Ghana.
The tradition of adding designs or sculpturing coffins dates back to the Egyptian times. In Ghana, for instance, hand-carved coffins are popular and can be seen as a status symbol or a way of remembering the deceased's job or personality. Eric Anang's imagination runs wild in his carpentry shop. He's made everything from a tilapia casket for a fisherman to this cocoa pod for a farmer.
So the family comes with the idea of the profession of the deceased. So let's assume the deceased is a driver. They come with the idea of the car the deceased was driving. So if it's something I've done before, I could suggest let's try to do a modern car or something. So we don't do any drawings at all, but we try to get a prototype of what we are doing.
These fantasy coffins continue as a tradition in Ghana today and have been commissioned by people from around the world and are also a display at various museums around the world.
I sent 24 pieces to Denmark, and just this morning I got to understand a museum bought all the 24 pieces. I was there also myself. I built 2 pieces, which has also been sold. I sent 20 pieces last year to Russia, and they ended up in a museum. Just a couple of months ago, like in January or February, I sent one to Florida, which is in the form of a seahorse.
Eric says the technology of building the most popular coffins is perfectly controlled. If you want to send away your loved one in a customized coffin, this is the place where you come to get that made for you. Reporting for VOA News, Paul Ndiho in Tishi, Accra, Ghana.
Very creative. Now from Accra, let's move on to northern Ghana, where a simple smoke known as fugu continues to carry out its ancient tradition. Africa 54's Mel Bailey looks into how it's made.
The fugu smock has been around for centuries. Ibrahim Sa, a fugu maker, explains why the smock represents a large part of northern Ghanaian culture.
We know our people centuries ago came up to northern Ghana from Nigeria. Back then, we had chiefs who lead our villages. The elected chiefs were fugu, and there were only about 3 or 4 for the entire village. They represented our land.
The fugu smock was initially intended to be worn on rare occasions, such as funerals or the Dumba festival, celebrating the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. But with the increase in artisan fugu makers and schools aimed at teaching the craft, the fugu has been seen worn in daily life. Ibrahima begins by organizing the thread by color. He uses spindles to roll the thread out and a wooden machine to make it even. He purchases the thread in the form of a yarn ball for 5 cedis and 50 pesos. The yarn is then spaced out by color to make a ball containing the desired pattern. Metal rods are used to secure the threads in place. After the pattern is rolled up, it is then mounted to a wooden hand and foot operated machine known as a pulley. With the spindle of thread in his 2 feet, Ibrahim operates the machine to weave the thread together to make strips, which are then sewn into the shape of the fugu. Fugus are then sold for roughly $200 or more if the garment has sleeves.
Germany, Italy, the fugu goes all over the world. A lot of tourists come and buy it and take it home with them. My brother who work at the market say they send many of them to Accra. So even in the south, people wear them. But the tradition came from here.
Ibrahim hopes to one day open his own shop selling fugus and sandals that match his designs. This is Mel Bailey for Africa 54, Tamale, Ghana.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a look at a new app that is all selfies all the time. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines.
In South Africa, Olympic athlete Oscar Pistorius, in jail for the murder of his girlfriend, is to be released on parole in August. In Somalia, MasterCard begins issuing credit cards in a bid to tap the $1.6 billion annual remittances business. In Ghana, 3 days of national mourning begins to honor more than 150 people killed in a petrol station fire in the capital, Accra. In Mali, French troops patrolled the country's north on terrorism operation. Finally, in South Sudan, the food crisis worsens as fighting disrupts crop planting. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
And welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Social media was abuzz over the news that Kate Moss was escorted off a plane. The supermodel was escorted off a flight operated by budget airline EasyJet from a Turkish resort for reportedly being disruptive. She was not arrested and no complaints were made. Moss is one of the world's most familiar faces. Discovered at 14, she has since graced the covers of hundreds of magazines and has worked with designers including Louis Vuitton and Stella McCartney. Her party image and celebrity boyfriends, including Johnny Depp, have kept her in the public eye. Next up, check out the hottest new smart trends. It's liftoff for Bluetooth Special Interest Group Smart Showcase event in London in more ways than one. Startup Toby Rich is unveiling their latest creation, a Bluetooth-enabled gaming drone. The high-flying gadget is controlled using a smartphone app. Gameplay allows pilots to compete and do battle in dogfights via their devices. Then there are the smart bulbs. Thanks to a Bluetooth 4.0 connection, they can be adapted via smartphone application. Owners can experiment with a range of colors, effects, and brightness. Bulbs can be grouped together to tailor a whole room's ambience. And in other tech news, do you take a lot of selfies but are too self-conscious to post them all on Facebook or Instagram? A Duke University graduate has developed an app called Ego that allows you to show your selfies without shame. The user creates a feed that people can see and interact with by boosting your ego. The app is intended to be used only for selfies. It's available for free in the App Store. And that is what is trending. Vincent, back to you.
Thank you. Very interesting. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute, where we teach you all about idioms in American English. If I told you it was raining cats and dogs today, I don't think you would see this little kitten falling from the sky. But what would you see? Let's watch and find out.
The rain is coming down so hard.
I know, it's raining cats and dogs today.
This is a very common expression in American English. When you say that it's raining cats and dogs in a conversation, it's another way to say that it's raining very hard or it's raining a lot. You can use this expression anytime and everybody will understand you. So, until the next time, stay dry. And that's English in a Minute.